This is the new DJI Goggles 3, and today we're going to be tearing them down. Now, this isn't going to be a review or an overview. This is getting into the inside of the goggles. We're going to rip them apart. We're going to take a look at what the antenna setup is on these goggles, look at what DJI have done, and then at the very end, I'm going to come back and share with you my thoughts on what we've seen. Now, I do have a complete teardown of the DJI Avata 2 as well. I've already done that on a live stream, in fact, and I will put a link to that video in the description if you're interested in watching it. There will also be a teardown of the DJI FPV Remote version 3 coming up as well, so if you want to see that, please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And finally, before we get into this, I just want to say that this video has been sponsored by Grey Arrow's Drone Club. They are the team behind Drone Scene, which is a map of recommended places to fly in the UK. They've got a really busy discussion forum. They offer regular competition prize draws with thousands of pounds worth of prizes available, and in fact, they're even going to be giving away an Avata 2 as well. And as part of their membership on their forum, you can even get 5 million public liability insurance as part of the membership. So please do check them out in the link in the description, or go to https://greyarrow.ws. Okay, so for this teardown, we're going to concentrate on the goggles. I'm not going to do too much with the battery today. I don't really feel there's a great deal of anything interesting in there. If you want to see what's in there, I'm expecting it to be almost identical to what we had in the DJI Goggles Integra. I might pop the cover off on it, but I'm more interested here in the goggles themselves. Now, if we have a look around, we've got a face mask, which does appear to be very similar to what we had on the other goggles. Let me just see if it is. Oh, there we go. Comes off pretty much the same. I even think that might even be the same face mask. I'll try it on another set of goggles in a minute, on my goggles too. But that unclipped just like that. That's revealed a load of screws, very similar to what we had on the Goggles 2 on my teardown of them. We've got 1, 2, and the Integras. New ones up here, but everything around here is exactly the same. Screws going in the side. Quite awkward, if I'm honest. In fact, the design in here is almost identical to the Integras. You've got your sensor, your SD card, your screws around here. Nothing particularly new or interesting at this point compared to the others. If we have a look at this, does this come off? Oh, there's Velcro. So, oh, okay. There we go. The foam pad comes off. The sort of foam, yeah, foam. And that reveals some screws here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one in the center. I think we'll start there. We'll start at the top. We'll get them off, and then we'll work our way down through the goggles. Okay, so I've removed those 5 screws, and I'm going to start popping in here with a pry tool. It looks like it pops off. I can't quite see how it goes. I did notice that it's loosened up in the middle, but not around the sides, which leads me to think that there might be clips at the sides. Oh, there we go. It's popped. And what do we have underneath? Okay, let me just turn that round, just to show you. Right, so we've got the back of the strap. So you can see we've got the back of the strap that comes through, and that looks like it's held in place with this like plastic bracket with 2 screws that go through the 2 halves. So if you wanted to take the strap off or replace it, you do it there. We've got the power cable coming in. There's no connections in here. That cable is coming straight in and going down into that sort of hinge there in the middle. What I can see though, there are 2 orange, there's an orange and there's a green cable. There's 2 cables there. What are they? Wow. I'm not sure. Do you know what? They almost look like coaxes. We're going to have to take a closer look and get under this cover and see what we can find. So that other cover is off, and that reveals the 2 antennas stuck to the back of this cover here, or the front, I should say, depending on which way you're looking at it. If we take a look at it, they're called ZV902s V001, ZV902s V001. I'm not sure what they're for at this moment in time. Are they Wi-Fi? Are they the OcuSync SDR? I think we're going to need to dig in a bit further before we find that out. So I guess the next plan is to take this face mask off. It looks like this comes off very similar to the DJI goggles too. We've got screws all around the sides here, screws all around there. So what I'm going to do is pop them out and then we'll try and get this cover off. So now all the screws are out, I'm trying to prise off the face mask. What I've done is gone in on either side here with a gentle pry tool and I'm starting to unclip it all the way around. It is not easy, I will be honest. It wasn't easy the first time, but it definitely doesn't feel easy this time. And interestingly, it seems to be grabbing on in the middle here. There are screws there that I have removed, but it doesn't still want to release. Let me just get back into this side over here. We've definitely loosened that side. We've loosened it round there. We're getting closer because this whole side here is lifted up. But there does seem to be a pivot point in this top area, and the issue is it's really not easy to get in there. Ah, there we go, it's popped. There we go, face mask removed, and that finally gets us inside the goggles. Okay, so looking in here initially, things are very different. We still have our proximity sensor in the middle. We've got these little covers that go over the lenses. I'm going to carefully pop them off. That's going to allow us to see inside. The optics modules are definitely different to what we had before. In fact, I'll be honest, there's a bit less going on. You've got a sensor there, which is the tap sensor, which is on that side. You've got just adjusted the lighting so you can see a bit easier. You've got that tap sensor down in there, and we'll look at that closer in a minute. You've got the board on the side here, which is clearly the power input board. There is also an antenna connection onto that board as well, which is interesting. I don't know what that's doing. We've got our board at the top here for our control, and then we've got our main board down the middle, as well as the GPS module right in the center at the top. I can just see that down in there. We'll look at this all a bit closer once I get zoomed in. What I can see, which is very different, is that DJI have used a lot of glue in here. A lot of glue compared to what they did before. And in fact, all of the antenna connectors are glued. That is not something we've seen from them in the past. Okay, getting in closer just to show you a little bit from here. Now, this is quite different to what we've seen from the other two goggles. On this side here, there looks to be some form of sensor bolted to the side. That must be for the tapping. On this side, we then have our power input board. What is very interesting is there is an RF cable that is coming off that board that is heading off to an antenna somewhere, and we don't know what that's doing. We then have a ribbon cable going to our main chipset, and then we've got our main PCB along the top here with all the antenna connections. There's 4 here, 3 here. I don't know what they do yet. What I can tell you is it doesn't appear to be the case that there's an antenna in the middle at the front. I actually now think there are antennas behind these flat spots on the front of the goggles, actually here. Alongside those antennas that we found in the top, we need to understand what each of these antennas does, and that's what I'm going to try and do in a minute. I want to see if I can get this module out. I don't know how far in I can go to actually disassemble this, but what we're going to do is take a look. I can see some screws down there. These were a real challenge last time. They were an absolute nightmare, so we need to have a look at that as well. Now, what is a real pain looking at this is the power cable comes in, but they've glued everything, including this power connector. I'm just looking here. It is over here, so it comes in through this hinge that you can see there. So the cable comes down and through along here under this clip into here, and it looks like it's pushed in from the front, but I can't get that off. There is no easy way to undo that, and it looks like that's all been glued in place. Now I've removed that big screw in the middle that holds the hinge in place. That's a bit like a laptop hinge that You can see there it's freed up some space, and you can see that GPS module just located in there. That is the GPS that is in the goggles for the remote ID functionality, and what we saw in the DJI goggles Integra, pretty much the same. What I'm really intrigued about is what that RF little chipset down there is. Okay, going further, I've just removed the 2 knobs off the bottom. They actually came off a bit easier on these than they did my goggles too. I ended up rounding one of them trying to get them off in the past, but we did do it. And now we're going to remove a couple more screws that are in here. There's one down there, there, and there. And I'm then going to see if this whole sort of shell assembly is going to come out. I am a little bit concerned of some of the antennas that I think are stuck to the front of the goggles. We're going to have to wait and see what happens when I try to do this. So what I'm going to do is get those screws out and see how we get on. So what we had was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there was one either side just down there behind the lenses, which was really hard to get to. However, now this whole assembly is starting to feel loose. If I just flip that up like that, I can definitely start to move this whole lens assembly around. There you go. I can see it is starting to come up. We've got to be super careful here because I can't tell if the antennas are attached to this. Are they coming with it or are they staying behind? I think that one is staying behind, which means we're going to have to actually undo them. Yeah, that one definitely is. That antenna there is staying behind. That little sensor there is staying behind. Okay. I think I'm going to have no choice but to undo this glue that's on this along there. We're probably going to want a bit of heat to start lifting this. DJI have really made this very, very difficult to take apart, but I don't think we're going to have a lot of choice. If we want to go further, we're going to need to get them off. So that glue actually didn't come off as difficult as I thought it was going to. However, it did end up lifting this UFL off, which is fine. It's not broken. It's just come off. But now we could actually be in the position, from the look of it, to be able to actually disconnect this power connector. There is still some glue left in there. Not easy to show you, but it is there. Yes, there we go. There, we've finally been able to disconnect that built-in battery. Get the glue off that connector. Don't need that. That then simply leaves the antennas going up to there. I want to leave them a minute. I just want to take some pictures, or at least I'm going to label this up so you guys will see it as I do this as well. So we've now got the power connector out the way. So antenna order is as follows. Ant 1, which is this one here, is our top corner antenna here for the SDR. Ant 3 goes up into the top section on the left hand side. Ant 5, which is next, is a white cable that heads off somewhere else into the front. Ant 4 is a blue cable that again heads off somewhere else into the front. Ant 2 is the green cable that comes up to the right hand side at the top here, in there. Ant 0 is the SDR antenna for this side. There's the GPS antenna, which goes up to there. So the GPS module actually is in this board with the antenna above, and you can see the wire goes along there, curls round and back in. And then this last antenna is actually labeled Wi-Fi, and you will see that under there once we get into it. That heads off to somewhere down the bottom here. And then there is another antenna located down here on this board, but we're not undoing him at this time. So what we're now going to do is gently undo these ones over here that I need to be able to get off. So we're going to undo this Wi-Fi one, which we know was the one that was dragging. So we're going to want to get that one out the way. That's the one with the white label on it as well. There we go. We're also going to undo antenna 0, which is our SDR antenna. We're going to get him out the way too. That way we're not going to be dragging on him. And I'm going to leave the others attached until we fully understand what they are, because we don't know what they are at this moment in time. Are they going to the front? I'm actually at the point with this goggle now of actually thinking, right, my belief is, at this point, is that there are 4 transmitting antennas and 6 receiving antennas, but I can't confirm that until we get in a bit deeper. What we're also going to need to do is have a look at some things like this cable down here. I don't really want to take that apart. There's gunk in there. I don't know what that is, but there's gunk in there. I don't know where we need to take that cable off as we bring it forward. We're going to be very careful with that ribbon cable, and we don't know what ones are over there as well. Here it is. Here we go. So we've totally disconnected the top end now. And this now should give us an opportunity to try and get this module out. Although there is a connector there, right? Before we step forward again, connection here to this top board goes down into here underneath. There we go. We have released him. So that is definitely one to watch. There's also this ribbon cable here. Now, interestingly, I can actually get to that ribbon cable. So I'm going to stop a sec. And I'm going to do him. Before we go any further, that way, there's no risk of damaging that one. It is a ribbon cable with a latch mechanism. Not the easiest to get out. I think I'll get the screw out first of all. Let's try and grab the screw out of it. Come on. Unless the screw is captive. I don't think it is, but... There we go, I got it out. But the screw wasn't captive, as I've now learned. So we're just going to give that a little bit of a... We know he's there. He can't go far. He does have to come free. We are going to want you, so come on. There he came. Is that it? You know what? I think we'll find him in a second. So I'd like that to have come out. Not sure where that disappeared to. Okay, it's in there somewhere. Right, we'll undo that ribbon cable carefully and we'll come back for that screw shortly. So that ribbon cable is undone down there. I'm going to be careful with this one on the side and pull him forward as we get it out, I think. Oh, we're definitely still clipped in at the bottom, so we definitely need to lift that up. We definitely free this side. We just need a bit more help on this side. There we go. Definitely moving forward a little bit now. Here we go. Just going to move them out the way. Oh, definitely coming free. There we go. Being very careful with that cable that is on the side over there. So the module is nearly out. We just need to sort this cable out that is on this side. Am I going to have to take that off the side, or can we get to it? It is incredibly delicate. You know what? I'm not going to risk that. I am going to try to undo those screws. Rather than risk damaging that ribbon. Tapping on the side. But what's weird is it actually feels like there's a load of gunk on it. DJI screws into plastic are always so challenging as well. They must have some really bendy screwdrivers for the things they do, because something I've noticed is their screws do not like you being on an angle at all. Struggling with that one. We're getting him. We'll have a look at how easy that is to put together again in a minute, because that's the only downside of this is it's all very well me getting it off. And we've got to find that one screw in a minute. There we go. See, there's a load of paste in the back of it. What's that about? I guess... I bet you that is the gyro and head tracking. That's what that is. That's the gyro and head tracker. And that's how it knows when you're tapping on the side, because it's using the knocks on the gyro. That's what that is. Okay, so now let's come forward again. And this time we should be all but free. All being well. We are. The back shell is clear. The front is clear. And there we go. We have the front of the goggles, the cameras, the fan, the front antennas, the GPS module on the top, our IPD and focus adjustment at the bottom, and again, this whole piece as one unit. Right, so I'm to this stage here, and I have decided this is as far as I intend to go. And the reason for that is the benefit of going beyond here is close to zero. I could get the PCB out and take all the cans off and take all the photos. However, they're really, at this moment in time, not of any great benefit. We know what chipsets are in there already from the Avata 2, but we also know it from other sources as well. And there really isn't anyone who is going to be going beyond this point, because you're never going to be repairing this board anyway if there's a problem. Now, this is a good opportunity to just sort of summarize some findings here of what we have. So we have a GPS antenna on the top, obviously for the built-in RID feature. The GPS module is actually on the main board because it is just an antenna. It has an antenna cable going down to the specific GPS port. We then have our built-in antennas at the front, which are labelled ANT4 and ANT5. They are going to the cross section on the front of the fan. That is just like we seen on the original goggles. They've got them horizontal, X polarized. They're linear antennas, but they're 45-degree angles to each other. What is incredibly interesting and different, though, is the fact that there isn't 4 antennas in these goggles. There is 6 for the SDR. From the look of it, we have antenna 0 and 1, which is going to our main antenna ports on the goggles here. And then you have antenna 2 and 3 heading out to this top section here, which goes into this part and there on the back there that you can see. And then 4 and 5 mounted on the front. I've spent a lot of time looking at the FCC documentation, and my understanding is, and this isn't 100%, but it is 99.9% now, that there are 6 antennas for receive on the SDR, which is OcuSync, and 4 capable of transmitting. The problem with the FCC documentation is it doesn't actually list the antennas for receive only. It only lists the antennas for transmit. In my checks, my belief is as follows. The 2 external antennas transmit. The 2 antennas on the top here can transmit, but the ones in the front are receive only. And that is the same setup with the 2 external ones being transmit and the internal ones being receive only as we had on the other goggles. What they've now done instead is added 2 additional antennas into that top section. You can see the fan with the cooling and heat sink setup here, which goes over to the top. I'll be honest, this is largely the same as what we had in the Goggles 2 and Integra. And what's really good about that fact is that the improved anti-fog performance that we've seen, which is through that boost feature, I think they could introduce on those other goggles as a software update. I don't really see any changes here in the hardware that improves anti-fog behavior. What DJI have done is added a boost function, and they should be able to do that on the other goggles as well. About the only other sort of interesting things to show you is we have our cameras on the front there, mounted on to that aluminium. Actually, I don't know if that's aluminium or like a cast metal frame section. And then you do have on the bottom here, which is quite weird to show, see these little wires on each side? These are the potentiometers, the encoders. I don't exactly know what type they are. I'm not going to take them apart to find out. That tell you the position that you've set the focus to. It's a ridiculous amount of engineering for really very little benefit. I don't really know why DJI have done that. I don't really, look, it tells you on the front. Why does it need to come up on the displays to tell you what the goggle's focus position is? I don't understand why they have gone to the length that they have to do that. Seems an entire bonkers feature that will benefit no one. It's pointless. It's cost. But then again, these goggles are cheaper. So, hey, we can't really complain. And then we've got our time of flight sensor on the front here. And then you've got in this little board here, which is our gyro, as well as our head tracking, basically. And that's on that little board on the side. And then all that leaves in the goggles, if I just put that to one side carefully, all that leaves in this section is the antennas for the Wi-Fi. So you've got an antenna over here, which is the Wi-Fi antenna. That is the one that's mounted in there, that section there. So that side is the Wi-Fi antenna. And this antenna on this side here is the GFSK antenna. Yep, thought it was. That is the 2.4 gigs antenna used for that new wireless setup that DJI have introduced with the Avata 2, that the remote controller communicates with the goggles, and the goggles then forward all of that communication to the drone via the wireless system. And the wireless system for that's down there alongside that power board, and you can see that there. And then we obviously have our fitted antennas which are fixed. I'm not going to use the words non-replaceable because these obviously are replaceable if you pull them hard enough. Really, replacing these is the same as it is on the Enquiries. It's basically the same process. No great difference. You're just going to need to remove that glue like I showed you, and then you'd be able to swap these out, but it isn't a simple task. What is interesting though is that you do have those two antennas on the top, and that is probably the better place to do some modification, if I'm honest. If you wanted to do something, the antennas that you've got in here, these are the ones I'd probably be looking at doing something on. Okay, now I've put this image together to show you the antenna layout in a bit more detail. Here you can see we've got the 4 OcuSync antennas on the goggle itself. So we've got the 2 on the top, non-removable, they're transmit. You've got the 2 built into the front in that cross pattern, and then you've got the 2 up in this bulge at the top as well. My belief is, based on everything I've seen so far, is that the antennas here and here, these ones are transmitting antennas, these ones are transmitting antennas, and the ones in the nose are receiving antennas only. 6 receive, 4 transmit. You've then got your Bluetooth Wi-Fi antenna down in one corner, and that new SDR antenna for the wireless remote system running on 2.4 gigs as well. But overall, internally, there isn't great changes to the design with regards to the cooling and things like that. And I'll talk about that a bit more before we finish up the video. You've also then got the GPS antenna on the top for your remote ID. That's going to allow it to send the data to the drone, telling it the ground-based position for the remote ID compliance. Yes, that's not going to be something everyone wants, but it is definitely something that is part of these goggles. When you do look at them internally, it is incredible what DJI have been able to pack in here. Now, overall, I have to say, I really do like the Goggles 3. I think the balance on these, when you think what we have here, is a mix between the Goggles 2 and the Integra is about right. What is really interesting to me, though, is that there really isn't a big redesign of the cooling system. However, DJI have introduced that boost function, or that anti-fog function, which drives the fan onto full speed. It's my opinion that there is no reason why DJI couldn't do that on the Goggles 2 and Integra via a software update. It's simply just a mode that tells the fan to go to full power. There doesn't appear to be anything too different in these goggles with regards to the overall design and cooling. It is literally the same. About the only thing we don't know is if DJI have changed the wattage of the fan and made it much more powerful. That isn't something we know or understand, but I don't think there's a lot of changes here, and I do think DJI might be able to bring that to the Goggles 2 and Integra. With regards to antenna upgrades here, there is nothing easy. There is no plug and play. There is nothing here that you're going to be able to do without a great big amount of work. If you tear them down, you're going to need antennas with IPX connectors. That is not UFL. It is that much smaller connector again as well. And I'll be honest, it is an incredible amount of work to do it. But interestingly, the early feedback on these goggles has been very positive, and it is worth taking into account, and this is something I'm going to cover a lot more in my review, that you shouldn't discount the fact that these goggles not only have 6 antennas, but also the fact that they now operate, especially in CE regions, on the 5.2 gigs band mode, on the 5.8 gigs traditional band. In CE, normal legal power is 25 milliwatts, but in CE regions, these goggles can now use the 5.2 gigahertz band as well, which actually allows up to 200 milliwatts, and that is a big jump over the 25. Okay, it's not remotely near the 33 dBm 1.6 watts that you can get in FCC, but it does mean, alongside the changes in antennas, that you may just be surprised how good the performance is on this, and the need to upgrade antennas may not really be there. Now, I'm going to be covering a lot more on that in my future review of the goggles as well as the drone. If you're interested in seeing that, please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel. As I've said, there will be a link to the teardown of the DJI Avata 2 in the description as well. If you want to see it, please do consider checking that out as well. Finally, I just want to say a big thank you to Grey Arrows Drone Club for supporting us on this one. Please do check out their link in the description. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content like this in the future, there is also a link to my Patreon there as well as Buy Me a Coffee. I want to say a huge thank you to all of my Patreons. We would not be able to do this without your support. Finally, I want to know what you think about this. Any questions, put it in the comment section. Please stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.